attorney's objective is to offer their clients a focused, goal-oriented effort, forceful advocacy, compassion, and sensible advice. You may have questions about your inheritance or a trust distribution, a possible appeal or business matter. No matter what issues you face, they will guide you through every step of the Florida litigation and appeals process. To arrange a consultation with one of their probate lawyers, contact the Pankauski Law Firm at 561-514-0900. That's 561-514-0900. Or go to their website, www.pankauskilawfirm.com.
The 096.
Hey, we're back now.
We're very back.
We've got a new segment.
We do.
Really excited about this.
Which I'm looking forward to.
Hey, if you've tuned in for the first time, the show's called Ask the Experts. We find the top experts in South Florida in the areas of health, legal, financial, and home improvement. And today's show is going to be on probate litigation. We have one of the top litigators in South Florida. See, John can't say this. I can say
We can say it, yes.
Yeah, so we've got with us today John Pankauski. See how easy I did that?
Very good.
And, hey, John, welcome.
Welcome to the show, John.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
And if you'd like to watch today's show, you could just go to www.nnradio.com. There's a TV link on the left-hand side of the page. Click on there, and there we are live. And also, if you have a question for John, the phone number here is 888-565-1470.
You know, today's show is going to probably affect a lot of our listeners today because we're talking about adult guardianship and financial exploitations of elders. Man, we don't want that to happen to our family members, our moms, our dads, but sometimes there's some crazy people out there. So, hey, let's welcome John. Hey, John.
Hey there. Good afternoon.
So tell us about your background and your law firm.
Certainly. So I'm a trial lawyer. I handle a practice that's limited to estates and trusts and guardianships and related property issues and the litigation and administration. So while my law firm does not write wills and trusts, we litigate them. We handle disputes. We help families and individuals and spouses and children with resolving an inheritance dispute or a trial or an appeal regarding wills, trusts, and estates, and increasingly guardianships for adults.
Okay, so tell everybody what exploitation of a guardianship is.
Sure. So unfortunately, Florida, with so many seniors and so many people with a lifetime of savings, Florida experiences too much in the way of financial abuse and financial exploitation. And when we're speaking about financial exploitation, we're talking about people who prey on those who may be vulnerable.
Prey on the elderly, typically,
particularly the elderly, absolutely. As we advance in our years, our golden years, we may be slowing down in certain aspects. And we have, many of us retire down here to Florida. We've got a lifetime of savings, IRAs, cars, property, maybe some stocks and bonds and some checkings and savings bonds. And we need to be careful because as we slow down, there are people out there and some are strangers, and a lot of family members.
Brings the rats out, doesn't it?
It really does. It's so sad. And so many family members are fighting for an inheritance, and they're not waiting till mom or dad die. And so they misuse powers of attorney. They misuse bank accounts. They exert undue influence over mom, dad, an aunt, or an uncle, somebody who may be a little bit reliant on others or vulnerable, all in the name of greed and money. And that's what our seniors need to be aware of and be cautious of.
So how does this affect the seniors?
Sure. So if you're a senior citizen in South Florida, what's important is that you have people in your financial and legal worlds that you trust, right? I don't want to make attorneys down here sound like superheroes.
But this is aside from family members, that you want to have somebody representing you.
Yeah, you really should have a trusted attorney who knows your financial position and your legal position, whether you have a will, a trust, a power of attorney, healthcare decisions that are expressed in writings. You should have a good doctor, a good lawyer, and a good accountant, right? Because those people will be there to look out for you.
What percent of your practice turns out in litigation?
You know, 100% of our practice is litigation and what we call administration.
So you step in when there's a problem, basically.
We do. When there's a dispute between family members or someone's going to court over an estate or a probate or a guardianship, that's when people who write wills and trusts say, call John Pankauski. We go to court. We're familiar with the rules of evidence. We have trials. We handle appeals, whereas most people in South Florida, most lawyers who write wills and trusts do not litigate. We litigate.
So what can you do if you find out that somebody is being exploited?
So there's a couple things you can do if you think mom or dad is being financially exploited. One, you should realize that there's a very strict and stiff criminal penalties in the state of Florida. And Palm Beach County, for example, like Broward County, have units within the district attorney's office or the state attorney's office and also the sheriff's office that help out and that help families out with financial exploitation of the elderly. The second thing that you can do is if you're concerned that mom or dad is being financially exploited and they can't defend themselves, or they might need a little assistance, you have to consider whether you can intervene or you need a guardianship. And what a guardianship is going to a court and saying, hey, judge, I need your help. My mom, my dad, my aunt, my uncle, I think is being financially exploited. I think they need a little assistance with their business affairs or their money. Intervene, give us some help.
So you have to go through an attorney for that as well.
You
Because
generally do.
I told you before the show, I actually have guardianship of my daughter who's an adult.
Yes.
And it's a very lengthy process.
Yeah, it can be, right? Guardians have to take special courses, and they might have to be
8-hour
bonded.
certification,
And
yes.
you have to file accountings, and you have to
Yes.
file plans in every year. But that's when the guardianship has been set up. And you're right, you're a fiduciary, so there's oversight that's required, and that's all intended to help the person who's the subject of the guardianship. But it's not necessarily lengthy if you're going in and saying, hey, judge, I need a hand right away. And the reason for that is in Florida, under the Florida guardianship law, if you suspect that somebody's being harmed, if they need protection, if you fear they're being exploited, you can go in on an emergency basis. And what happens is you file it with the clerk. The clerk gets on the phone to a judge right then and there. The judge takes what he or she is doing,
Without an attorney?
puts that down, and reviews the emergency that you just filed, and you can get a hearing right there, and
That's
you can get
fast.
relief
Wow.
from that judge right there.
Okay,
Now,
so
is
what's...
that, wait a second, is that with an attorney or without an attorney?
Well, I don't know that people would know what to do without
Right,
an elder law
exactly,
attorney.
yeah.
What signs do you look for, especially if you're talking about mom and dad, or what signs do you look for that someone's trying to exploit them?
You know, that's great. At our law firm, we've come up with 5 red flags that people should be aware of that can make one question whether financial exploitation may be going on. These 5 red flags are things that we've seen in repeated patterns over the years from helping families deal with financial exploitation. The first red flag that you need to look out for is new persons in your parents' lives with important roles. Is the dry cleaning person the power of attorney? Is the security guard in the condo complex on your bank account? Is somebody driving mom and dad to the bank all the time or telling them to get a new will or trust? New people in their lives with important roles. I'm not talking about new golf buddies, tennis buddies. I'm not talking about bridge partners. I'm talking about people who really don't have a relationship with mom or dad, your aunt or uncle, who all of a sudden are sticking their nose into their financial or legal lives. A second red flag to look for is lack of content and communication. You know, many of the senior citizens, they move down here. Maybe they lose a spouse, the kids have moved away, or they live in the Northeast, they live out west. Lack of contact and communication is very, very important, and it's a scary red flag. I can't tell you how many times an adult son or an adult daughter will call up and say, you won't believe what just happened. Mom has a power of attorney, and she gave it to so-and-so, and this stranger's name is on the bank accounts now. And you say, well, when's the last time you spoke with mom or dad? Oh, maybe 6 months ago.
Wow.
Lack of contact, lack of communication, red flag. A third red flag we need to look out for and be aware of with potential financial exploitation is increased isolation. You move down here, maybe you'll lose a loved one, and so maybe you lose a little vim and vigor of your life. But there's also another thing that we need to be careful of with our seniors: dementia. Right?
Yes.
My mom suffered from dementia, and the good news is that there's drugs out there that can slow the progression of dementia. But if you don't recognize the dementia, or you're not taking your medications, you can increasingly become isolated. You can lose an interest in going out. And so one red flag that we look for is there increased isolation? Is there a lack of interest in playing cards regularly, going out of the house, going shopping, playing with your regular golf buddies or your regular tennis buddies? Why? Well, because of the fourth red flag, decreasing mental state and increasing reliance on others. If we become more isolated, we see that dementia can progress more rapidly and we become more reliant on others. So the fourth red flag, decreasing mental state and increasing reliance on others, we need to be cautious about that. If we're not taking medication, if dementia is not being checked, if it's progressing, if we're isolating ourselves, even though our physical bodies may look good, our cognitive abilities, our ability to think, to analyze may be slowing down. And that's when we become more reliant on others. That's when exploiters.
That's when they prey on you.
That's when they look for financial prey. And, as we age, don't we want someone trusting in our lives to help us? Don't we want some companionship?
You tend to trust anybody at that point.
Sometimes you do,
Yeah.
and it's a real challenge.
Yes.
That's why the contact and communication is so important as people's mental state decreases over time and as their reliance on others increase. Finally, the fifth red flag that we look for, or that we see repeatedly in these what we call contested guardianship or financial exploitation cases at our law firm, is new estate documents or advisors. I can't tell you how many times we get a complaint from a family member of an heir, or an heir who says, Mom had the same will and trust attorney for 20 years, and you know what? There's this new power of attorney from some lawyer I've never heard of. Or there's this new will and trust from some lawyer that Mom's neighbor got for him.
So what could you do about something like that?
So if you see the 5 red flags of financial exploitation, there's a couple things that you can do. Many times you can talk to your mom or dad or your aunt or uncle about it. But let's face it, if they're suffering from things like dementia, if their cognitive abilities, their abilities to understand are decreasing, they can become agitated, right? And that's not out of the question for people suffering from dementia. So sometimes family members have to make a difficult decision. Do I file for a guardianship? Do I go to a probate court and say, Judge, I'm scared for my mom or my dad. Here are some red flags. I'm concerned. I want you to put into place a temporary guardianship, send out a team, investigate, have them render a report.
That's what they actually do, is send out a team?
They really do.
Wow.
When you file, and I think most people don't understand this, when you file a guardianship, if you run down to a probate court and say, Your Honor, I believe that my mom needs protection. She's ailing, she's advanced in years, she's not doing well. I fear that she's unable to make decisions for herself. Here's what happens. The judge can sign an order for a temporary guardianship right then and right there. Now, whether you're going to get an emergency order or not is a separate discussion. But his honor or her honor will appoint a lawyer to represent your mom or your dad, that person who's the subject matter of the guardianship. And that lawyer is going to contact your mom and your dad, and his or her job is to do only one thing: advocate for that person. Advocate, be a superhero for that person. What also happens is a team of examining committee members go into place. 3 people will be appointed. Usually one's a medical doctor. The other 2 may be psychologists or people in the mental health field.
To do an assessment.
They do. They go out there, they try to meet with mom or dad individually, and they render a written report. And the judges down here take those written reports very seriously. Now, what most people don't realize is when they render that report, they're going to make recommendations. They're going to tell a judge, I met with so-and-so on this date and time. Here's who was present, here who was not present. This is what I observed. And they're going to render an opinion as to whether this person is incompetent or incapacitated, maybe needs a little bit of help, maybe needs a lot of help.
Take away some of the legal rights.
Yeah, bingo, you hit it. They're going to make recommendations as to what rights should be taken away and what rights should not be taken away. Should you retain the right to drive, the right to marry, the right to choose where you want to live? Should you be able to retain the rights to handle your business affairs
Even the
or
right
your
to
money?
vote.
And the right to vote. So you can see that guardianships are very, very serious things
Yes.
here, because we're dealing with people's civil liberties, human rights, human dignity, and their money. Because in Florida, you can apply to be the guardian of someone's person to make personal decisions, or you can apply to be the guardian of someone's purse, all their money. And this is sometimes where we see what we call contested guardianships, where family members are fighting to control mom or dad. Mom or dad get on in years. They're a little bit more susceptible to influence. They're a little bit more reliant on others. Maybe we're slipping a little because we're getting advanced in years. And what happens? In the old days, what would happen? The kids wouldn't fight over the money until mom or dad were dead.
Now
right?
they do it before?
Now they do it before.
It's crazy, though. It really is.
They're running down. They're trying to get mom to sign a power
Splitting
of
up the
attorney.
jewelry.
Sometimes they are.
I know.
But increasingly, I mean, look, guardianship litigation for good or for ill is exploding in Florida, okay? And what they're doing is they're going down and they're creating guardianships and they're saying, hey, I want to be in charge of mom's money. No, you don't. I want to be in charge of mom's money. And so not only do you have siblings fighting over who's going to be in charge of mom or dad, but you know where we're seeing explosive growth in guardianship litigation? In situations where there's a second or third marriage. Maybe there are adult children who are living in the Northeast, right? But somebody is down here in Florida and they have a second spouse. They got divorced, or maybe they lost their first spouse and they remarry. And the adult children don't always like that. Or maybe the new spouse doesn't like the adult children. And so you have friction. And so what happens?
That happens a lot.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes.
Well, I want to talk. We're going to go to break right now. When we come back, I want to talk about where do you come in at? Who hires you? Where do you come in with your firm? We're going to be right back. Stay tuned.
The Pankauski Law Firm, PLLC, is proud to have been chosen as the experts in probate, wills, estate planning, and guardianship law on the Ask the Expert show. They also handle business litigation and appeals. They serve West Palm Beach along with all of Florida. When disputes about wills, trusts, and estates arise, it is imperative to have an experienced estate litigation attorney who understands the complexities of probate and trust litigation. When you are involved in inheritance property disputes, choose serious litigators with experience and confidence. At the Pankauski Law Firm, PLLC, their attorney's objective is to offer their clients a focused, goal-oriented effort, forceful advocacy, compassion, and sensible advice. You may have questions about your inheritance or a trust distribution, a possible appeal or business matter. No matter what issues you face, they will guide you through every step of the Florida litigation and appeals process. To arrange a consultation with one of their probate lawyers, contact the Pankauski Law Firm at 561-514-0900. That's 561-514-0900. Or go to their website, www.pankowskilawfirm.com.
And we're back. This is really an interesting show. I am so glad we've got John's Law Firm. Hey, John, give everybody your phone number if they'd like to contact you to make an appointment with you.
Certainly. We're in West Palm Beach, so we're area code 561, and our direct line is 514-0900. 514-0900. And if you forget that, you can always go online and Google Pankauski Law Firm.
Got a great website, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Great website.
Do you offer free consultations?
We do. We offer a free 30-minute consultation on the phone.
That's a long time.
It is. It's confidential and it's free of charge.
He's going to
That's
cut it back to
wonderful.
20 minutes when he gets back.
No,
Now,
he's not.
we have listeners in Broward and Martin County. Do you also cover Broward and Martin County also, as well as Palm Beach County?
We do. Our practice is predominantly in Southeast Florida, from Martin County down to Miami-Dade, with the bulk of our practice, our cases, our trials in Palm Beach and Broward County, but we do service clients throughout Florida. So, for example, we have clients in Collier County right now, Sarasota, as well as the Tampa and Orlando area.
That's that's what happens when you have the best. You know, people
Yes.
want the best. Let's talk a little bit about guardianship. Do you have to move out of your home when you're seeking guardianship? Can you be kicked out of your home?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because what do most people want? They want to stay in their home,
Exactly.
right? And they even want to receive the care in their home. So one of the decisions, if you're the subject of a guardianship, one of the decisions that if a guardian is appointed, the guardian is going to work with you on, or a judge will decide on, is whether you can choose where you reside, right? And whether you can continue to live at home, or whether you may need to move out somewhere. And the test in Florida is generally what's in your best interests. If you can have a good lifestyle at home and receive the care that you need and can afford that care, and you want to stay at home, a probate court judge is going to bend over backwards to keep you at home. They're going to try to make you comfortable, and they're going to try to, let you live the life that you're used to the extent that's practical. But it really depends on your physical and mental needs. If those can be met at home, you have a great chance of staying at home. Home is sometimes great for many people. It's not always the best thing. Sometimes you do need a little bit of care in a different facility. There are also some advantages to going to certain assisted living facilities or advanced care facilities for many reasons. But, I think the secret of trying to determine where you're going to live is trying to make that decision now while you're competent and while you can plan out your estate. So what I try to suggest is get in touch with a good estate planning lawyer, because everyone knows you need a will and a trust and maybe a power of attorney, but you can also execute healthcare documents. You can pre-decide what you want to happen if you're the subject of a guardianship, or as we age, if we become a little less competent or unable to manage things for ourselves. So, for example, you can sign documents right now that say you want somebody to be your guardian if you need a guardian. Or you can have documents that are signed that says, I don't want a guardianship. I've got other things in place, like a power of attorney or a revocable trust, that I don't need a guardian for.
But isn't that when the fighting starts with the family members? Who's going to be the guardian?
Yeah, it really
That's
does.
when John kicks in.
Yeah, that really is, right? You have to make a decision. Like if you go to probate court and you say, I want to be guardian of dad, and your sibling comes in, or dad's latest spouse comes in and says, don't you dare, I want to be in charge of dad and I want to run all his money, you have to make a decision whether you want to fight that or not, right?
Who would you suggest?
Well, that's a great question. I try to look at the person and I say, who's going to act for that person's best interest? And many times, if that person has a good, stable marriage, their partner, their husband or wife, is the most logical choice. Who's waking the person up in the morning, cooking them breakfast, wiping their chin, helping them, and who's enjoying life with them every day? But sometimes when you have guardianships that go to litigation and it's hotly contested, or very
That goes to litigation too?
Oh, all the time.
Yes.
And you can have guardianships with full-blown trials where you're calling witnesses, introducing
family members
documents.
usually, aren't they?
All
But the
family
guardian
members.
doesn't have to be a family member.
No, you really don't. And so this goes back to your question earlier: is who may be most appropriate to be your guardian? Sometimes a non-family member makes the most sense. Sometimes a professional or an objective third-party non-family member makes the most sense. Why? Because they can be impassionate, they can be objective, whereas the family members may be fighting.
Oh, that's right. Are there companies that do that?
There are professional guardians.
Yeah, there are professional guardians in Florida who take courses, may or may not get bonded, who usually have some type of background in fiduciary administration, trust work, estate work, probate work, or even psychology, or even mental health. Those people can be excellent professional guardians, objective, who really care for the individual. They swear to protect and look out for.
So what's the role of the guardian, though?
So in Florida, a role of a guardian is a fiduciary. You're supposed to look out and protect the person who's the subject matter of the guardianship. You know, when you file a guardianship petition and you allege that somebody may be needing a little help, may be what the lawyers call incompetent or incapacitated, we call that person the alleged incapacitated person because we're not sure if they're incompetent or incapacitated or not. If a judge decides that they do need a little help, if a guardianship is the right way to go, that person is now called a ward. And the guardian's job is to protect that ward, do things in the best interest of the ward. What does that mean? It means you start with the basics. I've got to make sure that this ward is protected, cared for, getting the medical attention, the food, the diet, the residence that they need, everything that they want. A guardian is a fiduciary, so you have a very important role to play, and it's a position of trust.
When does your firm step in? Because I can see fighting, we don't like this guardian, where does your firm step in?
Sure. So sometimes we're asked to represent one particular family member that says, hey, I think we need to file a guardianship action on behalf of dad. I'm concerned about dad, or I'm concerned about mom, or I'm concerned about my aunt. File the guardianship petition, go in there and advocate for me. I just want what's in my aunt's or my mom's best interest.
Guardianship.
We'll prepare it, we'll create it, we'll file it, we'll represent you in court. In addition to that, from time to time, we'll represent a guardian, somebody who's been appointed by a probate court judge, or maybe somebody who fighting family members agree will represent the ward, somebody who will be the official guardian, the court-appointed guardian. And in Florida, a guardian is entitled to have an attorney represent them. And so a guardian will come in and say, listen, I've got a family here. They're not getting along. I'm the guardian. I want you to come in. I want you to help me so I can help the person who's the subject of the guardianship.
Wow. There's so much involved.
Give everybody your phone number again.
Sure. So we're in West Palm Beach. We're just a few blocks from the courthouse, the main courthouse in the Intracoastal Waterway. Area code 561-514-0900. That's area code 561-514-0900. If you call, you'll get a free 30-minute consultation.
You know what? You've got so much great information on your website. Give them your website also.
Sure. Our website is www.pankauskilawfirm.com. Pankauskilawfirm.com. And if you can't spell it, it's okay. Put it into Yahoo's search engine or Google. It'll get you there.
Perfect.
I've got like 100 questions still. The time's gone by so fast. Just go over again all the services you offer.
Sure. So our law firm is a probate litigation firm based in West Palm Beach, but handling clients throughout South Florida and including the state of Florida. We handle disputes involving wills, trusts, estates, and guardianships, and related property issues, such as homestead, houses, bank accounts, joint bank accounts, uses and abuses of powers of attorney. If there's money, if there's family, if there's an inheritance, a will, trust, or estate, we'll handle the disputes, whether it's a full-blown trial, an appeal, or just common sense, hard-nosed negotiation.
Wow.
You know what? You should do a seminar someday. I bet that the place would be just packed. There's so many seniors down here. And now that we're talking...
And this is prevalent here. It really is.
Yeah. For good or for ill, for probate litigation, family members, in-laws, outlaws, fighting over money, it's a growth field, for good or for bad.
Yes.
And you're right there in the middle of it all, aren't you?
Yeah, we really are. And, what compounds this is right now there's millions of dollars being transferred to the new generations.
Well, John, thanks for coming in today.
Pleasure.
Hey,
Thanks,
John's going to
John.
be with us every month now, and we will be back again with you on
Monday, 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock to 5. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. Give them your phone number one more time, John.
Sure. Area code 561-514-0900.
Perfect.
You always get these calls and emails. You didn't give the number enough times. And now we did. We will see you on Monday.
Have a good weekend.
Peace and love.
We're out.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show with Steve-O and Renee. Tune in every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. while some of the top local experts in their field from Broward and Palm Beach counties educate you in the areas of law, health, financial, and home improvement. You can also call our offices at 888-574-6999 to become an expert on our show. The opinions expressed on the